Hey guys, I'm going to keep this one quite brief because, firstly, I'm not at home. I'm surrounded by a bunch of mad spaniels. And secondly, I did a 3-hour live last night going through all of the documents that came out yesterday, except for one. One came out after I got off the live. So, what I want to do is recap the most important points, some points that you've brought up in the comments. Okay, let's go. Over to Andrew Baldwin.
It's time for you guys to start being journalists.
Before an angry Andrew Baldwin left the courthouse, 13 News overheard him speaking to Richard Allen's wife, saying, "It ain't over. The world's watching. The world sees what's going on."
Okay, so first, let's just recap this letter to the court. This was hidden from view. It was sealed, and it's one of the documents that Judge Francis Gull has unsealed in just in time so that she can say that the first writ of mandamus and prohibition, she's so transparent, was moot. And it's this letter to the court. And I read it all on my live last night. It's 5 pages. This is by someone who is an inmate, who is convicted. He's a bad guy, right? But he acted as a voice for Richard Allen, basically saying that Richard was being abused and mistreated at Westville Correctional Facility. And he went on to detail a bunch of his own abuse, which, quite frankly, sounded horrific. So this Robert Baston guy was subpoenaed to appear at court in June of this year when attorneys Baldwin and Rosie were trying to get Richard moved from Westville to Cass County. So a bunch of you in the comments have said that you believe this guy, and I've got to say, I believe him as well. It's in his best interest not to tell this stuff, because doesn't it just incite further abuse? I mean, he's appealing to the court in hope that they can do something, because letters that he's sending about this abuse are not getting through, they're just withholding them. So this has been sealed since June. Was anything done about it? Has this guy had any form of, I don't know, interview? Have they checked security cameras? Have they done all the things that they need to do to investigate these claims? This came out after I got off my live. This is another thing that was sealed. This is the transport order saying that defendant Allen's attorneys Bradley Rosie and Andrew Baldwin shall have access to inmate Baston for purposes of questioning him at the hearing in June. And then this is the sheriff's letter in return. The writ came to hand on the 12th day of June 2023. Attempted service of said writ was made on the 14th day of June. The Sheriff of Carroll County, Indiana, reports the following to the court. On the 14th day of June, at the direction of the Sheriff of Carroll County Sheriff Special Transport Deputy Brian Wysocki reported to Indiana Department of Corrections, Westville, Indiana, for purposes of taking custody of and transporting inmate Robert P. Baston back to Carroll County for purposes relating to the cause. On the 14th day of June, upon arrival at the Westville facility, Special Transport Deputy Wysocki was informed by on-site DOC personnel that inmate Baston was refusing to exit his cell and was also refusing to be transported to Carroll County. to testify in this cause. On the 14th day of June, communication with the court was established by Sheriff's Chief Deputy Tob E. Leesenby, wherein Major Leesenby was advised by the court to disregard any further efforts to retrieve inmate Baston from Westville. Documentation relating to this incident by Sheriff's Special Deputy Wisocki and the Indiana Department of Corrections Westville is attached to this return. And then this is the incident report. On June 14th, Special Deputy Wisocki Brian, while on duty, was conducting a court-ordered transport from Westville Correctional Facility to the Carroll County Jail. Upon my arrival, I was escorted to inmate Baston Robert, and there's his number, segregation unit to conduct the pickup. After waiting, a corrections officer approached me and told me Baston is refusing to come out of the cell, and he told the correction officer, "F you can't make me go." The corrections officer told me they will have to do a cell extraction to get him to my transport vehicle. I told the corrections officer to stand by letting me make a few phone calls. I was escorted back to the main gate where I was greeted by Warden John Gallipo. I called Carroll County Jail Commander Laurie Sostarsic, I think, who I explained the situation to. She then made a phone call to Chief Deputy Tob Leesenby, who contacted Judge Francis Gull's office to inform them of the situation. Judge Gull's office advised them to leave Baston there if he did not want to attend the court hearing that is scheduled for 6/15/23. I then spoke with Warden Gallipo and asked if he could provide me with a letter stating that Baston refused to come out of his cell and that he did not want to go. So he did not want to go because of the corruption and retaliation, and he felt it would get worse. So I bet it's got worse since. Warden Gallipo agreed he would. He later advised he would bring the letter on 6/15/23 to Carroll County Courthouse so I could attach it to this report. Nothing further at this time. And that's that. That's the conditions that Richard Allen is living under, despite him being at Westville to, quote unquote, keep him safe, because a county jail can't do that apparently. Although they can keep every other high profile inmate safe. Brian Koberger, Rex Heuermann, just as 2 cases that I'm following right now. Anyway, so let's move on. This is Francis C Gull's response to the first writ. Now let's explain the deadlines here. So there's 2 writs. The first writ had the original deadline of November the 9th. She asked for a 5-day extension, which was granted. So it gave her basically a week to the 16th, which was yesterday. So she got this response in at the 11th hour, but hey, I said she'd go right up to the wire. Close of business. All right. Then there's a second writ that's completely different. That was given by the Supreme Court of Indiana, the deadline of November 16th. So the same date as the extended deadline of writ 1. Are you still with me? So Francis appealed for an extension on writ 2 because things are starting to back up now. And she asked for an extension till November 27th, which was granted. So the next big day is the 27th of November. I've heard on the grapevine, i.e. my comment section, that there is a groundswell, a peaceful protest at Carroll County Court on the 27th. So if you're in the area, I don't know, check it out maybe. Okay, don't want to read all of this. I read all of this in the live stream last night, so go and check that out. But I do want to mention one thing here. One thing that was very, very apparent in the November 14th document that Francis wrote, throwing her court clerk under the bus. Relator has directed the clerk to enter on the CCS and make publicly available all non-confidential documents that relator requested to be made public. Moreover, respondent is under no duty to maintain the CCS. So that's the docket. It's the court system where all the correspondence goes, right? And in a case like this, you would imagine that there's quite a lot of correspondence. That is the clerk's responsibility. Throwing the clerk under the bus, it's a lowball move. It really is. I mean, listen, there's some valid points in this document, all right? But the fact that she's just reviewed the CCS just by chance 2 days before this deadline and done the bulk of what they asked for anyway. So the writ, even if it's denied by the Supreme Court of Indiana, I kind of think it's done its job. Listen, throwing the clerk under the bus is a lowball move. It really is. Because what's the clerk to do when Judge Francis C Gull orders that things are removed? Does the clerk have any redress in the matter? No, not really. And I mean, technically, they should be independent of the judge. But are they actually? If the judge has ordered something be removed, is the clerk meant to just stand up to her and say no? And if they do, then that's a potentially really complex situation. So the chance is the clerk's just going to abide by whatever the judge says. So we've got to wait for the Supreme Court's ruling on this. I don't know when that'll come. I don't know how quick they are with this kind of thing. But before I go, I want to remind you of the second writ. So arguably, this is the big one, arguably. This is what the second writ wants. To ensure that, going forward, Richard Allen receives his fundamental right to counsel. So he's got counsel, William Labrator and Robert Scremin. That's what she's going to argue. That's what Gull's going to argue, right? That she had to disqualify Brad Rosie and Andrew Baldwin for gross negligence. This writ does a good job of explaining the reasons why she was wrong and that she can't do this. But we'll have to wait and see what the Supreme Court of Indiana says. A writ of mandamus is appropriate to reinstate attorneys Baldwin and Rosie as court-appointed counsel. Because that's what Richard Allen wants, right? To set a trial date within 70 days from the issuance of the writ, well, that 70 days is being eaten into because Judge Francis Gull is asking for extension after extension after extension. And have we heard anything from Labrato and Scremin? Have they got an opinion on what's going down? Are they keeping quiet? Are they keeping quiet because they're on Judge Francis Gull's side, because they're her friends? At least Labrato is. Yeah, I think so. And remove the special judge and appoint a new one. So, how far is the Supreme Court of Indiana going to go with this? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. They have the power to reinstate the attorneys. I don't know whether they'll disqualify the judge because she's just a pain in the ass, and then they'll ask the new judge to reappoint Baldwin and Rosie. I could see that happening, but anything else is just a guess. So, there we go. The world is watching. The world sees what's going on.